If you've ever felt out of place, like your experiences are totally different from everyone around you, maybe you're dealing with what it means to be an old soul. If love always feels distant or temporary, while others say you're hard to love. If your job becomes overwhelming and people label you lazy or unmotivated. If society, in general, feels confusing and you see yourself as someone who just doesn't fit in, there's nothing wrong with you. In fact, you might be someone who's lived many lives, gathering experiences and wisdom that go beyond this existence. In this video, we'll look at 8 signs that might show how many lives you've already lived. Get ready for a journey of self-discovery that could shine a light on the shadows of your soul. And stick around until the end, where we'll summarize the main lessons that will surely resonate with your life experience. Picture an old gramophone playing in an empty room. From afar, the melody sounds normal, but as you get closer, you notice tiny noises that don't belong to the song, crackles kept by the vinyl after so many different needles. The old soul carries similar noises, sharp talents, subtle scars, and feelings no one around understands. The first sign often shows up as a talent or wound with no recent source. Maybe you wake up one day playing complex guitar chords, even though you spent your childhood far from any instrument. Maybe you master math formulas while your classmates break a sweat just looking at a fraction. Or, on the opposite side, maybe you carry a fear of running water without ever having experienced drowning. Edgar Cayce called this a spiritual echo, notes crossing lifetimes, still searching for a stage to fully sound. If some talent or trauma appeared out of nowhere, write it down later in a notebook, how it came up, what feeling it brought, what desire it sparked. Then share it in the comments, because your story might mirror the doubt of another silent traveler. As the body rests, another sign turns on lights. I'm talking about dreams that repeat like chapters of an old forgotten book left on a nightstand. Pay attention to the color of the dream sky. Maybe it's the color of brick dust, typical of an era before electric lights. Or the language spoken, full of guttural sounds not heard in the halls of your school. If you wake up smelling salty sea air or with your throat still burning from a muffled scream, there's a strong clue there. Write down everything right away: time, weather, emotion, like saving photos before the rain washes them away. Over time, you might discover a story sewn together by details. The same stone tower by the sea, the same creaking leather boots on the floor, the same hands that aren't quite yours but feel the weight of an object you've never touched awake. Let these scenes guide you into small experiments. Try cooking dishes that feel familiar. Study the history of the period your dreams reflect. Read aloud unusual words that popped up in the middle of the night. By reacting consciously, you turn blurry images into a solid compass. The third sign hides in meetings that feel like old accents reuniting in a busy airport. Who's never met someone and instantly felt their chest open up, like the conversation started halfway through a forgotten sentence? Or, on the other extreme, felt their body stiffen at an apparently harmless smile? These invisible magnets are clues of karmic agreements in progress. When this chemistry appears, whether warmth or cold, stop, breathe, and watch without judging. Ask yourself what lesson might be asking for a stage there. Courage to say the no you never said, humility to apologize straight up, discipline to keep a partnership that needs to work this time. When you recognize the invite, answer it honestly. And if next week you notice a change, peace showing up where anxiety lived before, for example, come back here and share it. This sharing weaves threads between souls that maybe already jostled each other in ancient caravans. Fourth sign, spontaneous childhood memories. Kids up to 7 live with reality's fabric slightly undone. They say they have another name, point to maps that don't exist, explain exactly how to build a Phoenician boat. Parents usually laugh or change the subject, but the advice is the opposite. Listen, ask, record. If you, an adult, hold a persistent memory of living in a house no one in your family recognizes, don't dismiss it. Search for old street photos, feel if some different vibe stirs in your stomach. Maybe the memory isn't crazy. Maybe it's a postcard from another time waiting to be read. And since the past loves everyday clues, look at the places that bring tears before the camera even focuses. Some people land in Rome and, still in the immigration line, feel their spine crack with longing. Others step into an Andean village and seem to recognize every stone on the path. The vibrational resonance, as Cayce called it, happens when the body and the place share a similar frequency, like two bells ringing together. When that happens, walk without headphones, touch walls, listen to accents, taste flavors. Then write it all down. You might discover a profession, art, or value your soul left there, waiting to reclaim now. 5 signs so far: sudden gifts, recurring dreams, intense connections, childhood memories, places that embrace you. Still missing are fears without cause, existential weight or lightness, and conscious regression. But we'll save those for later because solid info needs time to grow. For now, pick the sign that resonated strongest and turn it into a practical act in the next 24 hours. Play those 3 guitar chords that showed up in your dream, read 2 pages about the city that made you sigh, call that person whose presence defies logic. Knowledge that doesn't turn into action turns to dust, and dust, though old, doesn't build bridges. If this part lit up something inside you, just type recognition in the comments. You help the algorithm see that these clues matter, and bonus, you leave a spark for another old soul who might still be walking in the dark on this long road of returns. Maybe the trickiest clue of all comes disguised as panic. I'm not talking about the usual scare from a barking dog, but the chill down your neck just from seeing an image of a suspension bridge, the instant nausea triggered by deep water, even through a phone screen. These fears without a modern trigger are like notes stuck on the door by your soul, insisting you don't fall into the same dark ending from another life. The best way to deal with them isn't running away, but making a gradual pact. Pick an ally, a therapist, friend, support group, and approach the fear little by little. Breathe through your nose, feel the air touch the roof of your mouth, repeat quietly, "I'm safe, I'm learning." With each step forward, write 2 lines in your journal. What emotion showed up? What memory crept in? Over time, you might find that the fatal fall that once ended a life now turns into a victorious crossing over a real or symbolic bridge. If you take the first step today, leave "I moved forward" in the comments. Your gesture will be a beacon for those still trembling in the dark. Some souls, however, don't show up as phobias, but as existential heaviness. Some people hit 18 already carrying the weariness of countless harvests, wars, and goodbyes on their shoulders. They're the kind who sigh before answering, watch more than they speak, and prefer old stories over fleeting news. Others, even with wrinkles and ID cards marked by time, radiate childlike curiosity, get excited by every new tech, and switch passions every season. These differences aren't flaws or virtues, they're just different lengths of the journey. If you see yourself in the group that feels the world's too old, try adding little moments of lightness to your day. Dance to a song while making your bed. Take on a hands-on challenge that requires creative patience, like gardening or origami. If you belong to the team that thrives on novelty, add rituals of silence, slow reading, and reflection before posting anything. Both approaches complete each other. Experience without freshness turns gray. Enthusiasm without roots is a spark that fades in the wind. Pick the balance you're missing and plan a simple practice for the next 48 hours. When you're done, come back and share. Even 1 line is enough for someone needing real inspiration, not just theory. So far, we've talked about signs that show up spontaneously, but some feel called to dive straight into the source, like choosing to visit the public archive instead of skimming newspaper clippings. Memory regression, when led by an ethical professional, offers this immersion. It's not a sightseeing trip or idle curiosity. It's delicate surgery, removing thorns stuck between the ribs of personal history. In a safe space, eyes closed, steady breathing, the body relaxes and the mind descends stairs into surprisingly clear scenes. Clogs creaking on wet boards, the smell of tanned leather, the ground vibrating under horses' hooves, the chest pain when hearing a child has been drafted for war. Every detail gives context to current dilemmas. The irrational fear of lightning might come from a fire that ended a home a century ago. The block against authority might echo unjust punishments in a dungeon. But seeing isn't enough. After the session, the story must be fully written down by hand if possible, then calmly discussed. Ask yourself, what practical step honors this new insight? Maybe it's forgiving someone, looking for a new job, or moving city. Without action, the memory just becomes a collection of fantasies. Besides guided regression, there's the option to explore the so-called Akashic records, a metaphor Cayce used to describe the universal memory field where every thought, feeling, and deed is recorded as energy trails. Some access this field through deep meditation, others via automatic writing or contemplative prayer. If you decide to try, set up the space. Soft light, a white candle if it helps you focus, square breathing. Write one direct, no-nonsense question in a notebook and stay silent for 10 minutes. Then write down everything that comes up, even if it seems fragmented. Don't judge right away. Let it rest for 24 hours and then reread. Isolated words can form a coherent map when seen with rested eyes. If something comes with true force, quietly thank and filter the content through logic. Genuine insights never ask for fanaticism, but for coherence and compassion. You might wonder why you'd poke at old wounds or unlock dormant talents. Here's why. Because knowledge that doesn't flow into benefit here and now becomes dead weight, and dead weight clouds how you see the present. Exactly where life happens. When a baseless fear turns to courage, you don't just breathe easier, you inspire those watching your journey. When an old soul decides to learn a new language, it doesn't just renew the brain. It proves that maturity includes flexibility. And when someone integrates memories from other eras, they take the universe off autopilot and hand the helm back to their own consciousness. Before we move on to the third part, which will tie each sign into practical guidance for daily life, take a moment for a little ritual. Close your eyes for a minute and bring to mind the sign that pulsed the strongest in this section. The illogical fear, early heaviness, the call to regression, or curiosity about the Akashic records. Feel it in your body, in your chest, stomach, or throat, and promise yourself one concrete gesture by dawn, no matter how small. Then write "promised" in the comments. This simple word plants seeds of collective responsibility and reminds that an individual journey grows stronger when echoed by many. Take a deep breath, open your eyes, sip some water. The road continues just ahead, and the next step is turning this whole spiritual map into a practical path, so every note from past lives finds living application in this very morning you woke up. Because real wisdom doesn't live in how many lives you've counted, but in the intensity of love you spread in the next conversation, the next job, the next look. See you soon. Deep breaths are good, but breathing with intention changes the moment because the idea of reincarnation stops being just sofa talk and becomes the engine that pushes your day forward. Up to now, 8 signs have lit up like lanterns down a dark hall. The keys are in your hands. Now you just need to turn each lock. No fireworks needed. It's through tiny everyday acts that the old soul finds use for centuries of baggage. Start with the talents that show up out of nowhere. If the guitar feels like a natural extension of your fingers, set aside 10 minutes a day, even just before bed. Play for kids, elders, or strangers. Sharing transforms lonely virtuosity into a living bridge. Someone reading Mesopotamian astrology like a magazine can distill that knowledge into a clear article and publish it openly. A skill given to the world becomes a tool. Kept to yourself, it rots like forgotten fruit. Next, give purpose to recurring dreams. Keep a notebook and pen by your bed and write down the scene before your phone alarm steals the tiniest details. At the end of the week, underline repeated images, towers, tastes, dialects. Pick one and explore. Watch a documentary about that era. Try a typical recipe. Learn 3 words in the language from your dream. Practical curiosity turns fantasy into a trustworthy map. In relationships that land in your lap, practice mindful listening. If someone inspires childhood safety, ask where you can grow together. If someone triggers immediate discomfort, set firm but calm boundaries. Every reaction is a clue to lessons still waiting. Make a habit of reviewing these encounters every Friday, noting concrete learnings. Without reflection, the story repeats. With honest analysis, the season changes. When it comes to baseless fears, drop the all-out battle and choose gradual approach instead. Scared of high bridges? Start by walking over low walkways, breathing deeply. Once your body agrees, move on to bigger structures. Track progress, celebrate centimeters, not kilometers. An old soul doesn't demand theatrical heroism, but coherence. Fear turned into useful courage. If existential heaviness drains your energy, add small lightness rituals. Dancing through a whole song while sweeping the floor is worth more than an expensive retreat. Meanwhile, the eternally wired spirit might create a 5-minute daily pause in total silence, training focus. Both routines tame extremes and remind that wisdom balances depth and freshness. For those called to regression or the Akashic records, seek trustworthy professionals or practice grounded guided meditation. Soft light, direct question on paper, 10 minutes of slow breathing. Write down whatever comes without censorship, then let it settle for 24 hours before believing it. Truth holds up over time. Illusions vanish when exposed to logic. Now, here's the summary. Sudden gift, vivid dream, intense affinity, childhood memory, a place that feels like home, illogical fear, out-of-time heaviness or lightness, access to deep records. These are the 8 beacons. Pick one to apply today, just one. Maybe call your music teacher, book a therapy session, or buy a dream journal. From that simple step, all the other doors fall into place like dominoes. If anything here resonated, type "promised" in the comments and describe in 10 words what you'll do in the next 24 hours. This public commitment teaches the algorithm this topic matters, but above all, it reminds your own consciousness that ancient wisdom only counts when it flows into concrete action. In the end, it doesn't matter if you've lived 20 or 200 lives. What tilts the cosmic scale is how much compassion each memory adds to tomorrow's conversation, how much courage fuels Monday's email, how much patience you offer the neighbor who insists on drilling on Sunday. When the old soul decides to act, the past stops being a museum and turns into a stream of clean water that crosses the present, fertilizing everything around. Breathe, feel your whole body. Silently thank every flicker of memory. Then hit subscribe, not out of obligation, but because voices talking about depth create a strong current bright enough to light many still dark corridors. Until next time, who knows, it might just be the continuation of a conversation that started long before we were born.